You're listening to the 14th Source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, November 29th, 2024.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
It's such week, such time. It's
starting great, bud.
Yeah, I know,
it's been a couple weeks, and like we just lost all sense of language.
Well, there's a lot going on, right? We're both busy, stuff.
Oh, it's also Thanksgiving this week.
This week in the United States, for those that live here, it is Thanksgiving.
And another thing that's kind of throwing a wrench into things is recording much earlier than we normally do. So we're all off our game. Because
of, for us, Thanksgiving.
Right, Tom Hanksgiving.
To Hanksgiving. Yeah.
Isn't that what it is?
My favorite holiday. Created when
for.
He appeared in his first film, whatever that is. Yeah.
Was that not Mazes and Murderers? What was it? What was that? Satanic Panic? D&D?
Right.
Mazes
and Monsters, I think. Yeah. Wow. What? Damn. I don't know if that was his first, but boy, oh boy, that was early. And what a reach.
Who knew he'd be America's sweetheart?
Sweetheart. Right. After that.
Tom Hanks's first movie. Let's see here. Oh, this is Quora. What am I doing here? You know what? It's not that important.
Well, the internet's fucked anyway. Like, you try to Google stuff, and Google's like, my AI said. And you're like, no, I don't want what the AI said, because half the time, it's wrong. For example, I was reading on Reddit, which I only go to because I'm sad, and I saw someone share a Google AI search about the game No Man's Sky. And it was like, hey, how do I do this thing in No Man's Sky? Or it was actually, it was a context. The question was about something, and it started out strong about whatever the thing was, but then it pivoted into some very particular shit about No Man's Sky, where it's like the AI just conflated whatever it was. Like, how do you get, ferrite or something, like whatever it was. It's like, it started like, this is real. And then, unprompted, it pivoted into bullshit.
Sounds about right. As a person grading some essays right now, where AI might be involved, I absolutely know that it can be bullshit.
But yeah, so it's that weird thing where I feel like, don't Google it, you'll get the bad answer. The fact that we say Google it, we have to actually take that word back.
Right.
We have to reclaim the verb.
I internet searched it.
However, speaking of No Man's Sky.
Nomansky.
I may be back on that train.
Wow. What? Wait, how long has it been since you left?
The last train was, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago.
Okay, so it's been a minute.
It's like every year or two for the past couple of years. Look, we all make mistakes. We all have bad days, right?
Well, honestly, I wasn't going to shame you, because there's been some, I remember seeing the marketing for
banger updates.
Huge updates. Yeah. So what's, right. I mean, I haven't played since at least 2 of the updates. So how was your No Man's Sky experience? What are you seeing? What's new? What's surprising? What's good? What's a big question mark? Tell me.
So for me, I would say that the reason I actually started playing it was because I bought a new computer.
Oh.
Actually, I replaced the computer that's actually recording this podcast, which, boy, oh boy, I hope this doesn't eat shit. The new computer that records this podcast, it all sounds like barf. No, but I bought a new desktop for my sit at desk work. Which is what I use for the podcast. And it's a new Mac
we're working
Mini.
here. I don't know if you can tell, listeners. We're working.
We are working. This is, we work hard for the money, so you better treat us right. So I bought a new computer, and I was like, oh, but I know this is actually the first desktop I have that is the new, Mac
Like the
Silicon?
M.
Like the M's,
yes.
right?
Yes, the M series, yes.
And I know that they started pushing game stuff. They're like, oh, look, it's all, CPU or computer on a chip. Like, we don't need a separate graphics card. I'm like, well, let me try some stuff. So I basically, all the games I want to play, I'm like, if you have a Mac version, let me download it and try it.
That's the first hurdle.
Yeah, if you have a Mac version. Well, what I'd say is that No Man's Sky was sort of unique in this regard because a year or two ago, they actually announced, hey, we're doing a Mac version. Like, they went and did the work, worked with Apple to make, here's now the Mac version. So I'm like, oh, let's go. Let's go, right? So I downloaded the game on my Mac to play, to see,
Okay.
I haven't played this game in a couple of years, a year or two, but also let's see how it compares to my video game computer, right? The important part for those that want to get nerdy is they actually worked with Apple to develop the game using the Metal API, which is basically it's the graphics routines that they use. So for those that don't know what API is, it basically Metal, as I understand it, is kind of like the Apple version of DirectX, right? It's you want intensive graphic stuff. We wrote these procedures and tools for you. Right. And so Hello Games essentially was, I assume that Apple paid them to work with them to develop a No Man's Sky version that worked with Metal. And Metal is also the idea that the new silicon processors are Metal Direct, right? They whatever it is that's going on, you write your software, you use the Metal procedures, and Apple will make sure it works well, is kind of the idea. So I was like, yeah, let's check it out. And what I would say is in my initial pass of trying out games, I've actually been really impressed with how it works. I get that I have a Mac Mini now. I did previously. It's an even smaller one. Mm-hmm. But the games I play that are on Apple actually work pretty well.
Nice.
Ish.
Uh-oh.
No Man's Sky is the one interesting one because I would say compared to the Alienware, Aurora, whatever, some bullshit Alienware box I bought, which, remember, Alienware, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Dell.
I did not know that.
But Alienware was always it's the company you buy a video game PC for. Or at least it was.
Is it water cooled?
It does have a liquid cooled graphics processor.
Nice.
But I don't
Does it have a transparent side to the tower?
No, absolutely not. And I don't have to feed
RGB lights, no. LED lights. No,
there's a little bit.
Okay.
I don't have to feed water into it, so it's fine. I don't have to put the garden hose in.
Why is that water bill so? My computer, sorry. I'm talking about plants or something. No. Just playing Fallout.
But there was this idea of how does it work? And I would say that the most notable for me experience, and I this Alienware computer's I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, but I would say that actually No Man's Sky ran better on my Mac Mini, which again was created in the last 3 months, right? This was. But the idea that this is not a dedicated gaming computer. This is just a fucking Mac Mini. And also, let's acknowledge No Man's Sky is 8 years old.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm that's, what a way to show Apple's on the cutting edge of gaming than to release a nearly 10-year-old game or to promote a 10-year-old game, nearly 10-year-old game on.
But I would say that the idea that I actually learned how to turn on the FPS monitor on Steam to see how's that work? And generally it was wow, this game is actually working better, because I assume that part of it's that the programming is able to take advantage of the weirdness of this system. So that's why I started playing. And what I would say is I no longer use my Mac to play No Man's Sky, mostly because apparently it works great until I want to jump to a different system.
Uh-oh.
And then it's like, bleh, there's like a 30% chance it's like, bleh, no, not only crash, reboot your computer.
Whoa.
But that might actually be like an Apple problem. I've submitted so many like, hey, your system crashed. Do you want to submit a report? I'm like, yes. No Man's Sky did not work.
That's wild.
But I would say is that other than that, like, hey, I'm using my Xbox controller to play. I plug it into my Mac. It's working great. Having a really actually solid experience other than the oops, I crashed, which like kind of fucks it up. But almost there, right? Like almost there. But I started playing No Man's Sky again. And boy, oh boy, has this game changed. It keeps doing that. And every time it's like, oh, wow, this game has changed. And I get at this point, they're actually just op testing for their next game. Like, right, but that's fine. Like, it's like, wow. I feel like every time I get back into this game, which is about every year or two, it's always like, well, shit, this is a really solid, like, you have added content, gentlemen.
Right. Well, that's the interesting thing, because, like, it kind of turned me off on the game, which is, like, all these updates and, like, these big updates were like, oh, it's basically a new game with new modes and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, you're making it more and more into a game I don't want to play anymore. Which is, I don't know, like, I think the last big one had, like, oh, what was it? It was something that just, like, kind of turned me off. And, like, I was already kind of on the fence with the game after a while. I'm like, well, I'm glad they're keeping it alive, because especially considering its rocky start. And I'm glad people are still enjoying it. But man, it's definitely a very different game than, hell, even when I started playing it, which was not that long ago, but definitely from when it first released. And that's I don't know if I want to call it an accomplishment, but it's definitely impressive and interesting. It's an interesting lifespan for sure. And right. I wonder how long they are going to try to keep adding stuff to it, because it doesn't seem like they're going to stop, especially since it's all been free, right? Like all the updates have been free. Right.
Well, and I think that's a friend of mine actually pointed out, like, no, at this point, they're just testing for the next game they want to do, which I think they've announced, which is fine. Like, sure, use this game, which has a pretty big player base, to test. And actually, I'll say, they continue to draw, like, they even said, like, recently, like, they've reached more concurrent players than they ever have.
That's great. That's cool. Good for them.
So it's a weird experience that, like, every time I come back, there's like, oh wow, it's a new thing. I start over. The one thing I will say,
going to ask you, are you starting over from scratch?
I did. But I will actually say that I think the thing that this experience, which I recommend anyone that wants to play the game, certainly get a start with the game, like spend some time to learn how it works. Yeah. But then also they have what they call the expeditions, right? Which are basically, once you know how the basic game works, this is like start a new game, but in a different start scenario with different goals.
Right.
But it's also a much faster experience because it's going to end in 3 weeks. So it becomes this thing, but also like play through it, and it can then, like, certain things will translate into your normal game, right? Like the idea that, like, oh, you can share resources or get benefits. I was surprised because I was like, oh, I want to finally try this. So for those that don't know, years ago they did a special crossover with EA where they're like, oh, we're gonna do a Mass Effect thing where you can get the Normandy in the game.
Oh, damn.
And that's what they're doing right now as of the time of this recording. They basically did like a redux of that.
Oh, shit.
And
I gotta go get my Normandy.
Well, and so for me, I was like, well, I'm going to finally try this because, like, I don't know, I've never done this expedition thing before. And I found that, like, oh, wow, it was actually, I liked the experience of having, the same game, but with a very different, like, goal set. But also, like, with a fast timer on it, where it's like, oh, a lot of the things that normally like, oh, this costs this much, like those were all shortened, right? Like everything was like, this is intended to be like, we acknowledge you're only going to be doing it for at most 3 weeks. So like get through it, have a good time with this goal, achieve what you will. And I actually was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, and then when I was done, it was like, oh, now take what you've gotten from that, or at least some of what you've gotten, and help it like improve your open world horseshit normal game.
Yeah.
Which like was a fun thing of like it prompted me to engage with the timely event, but I don't feel bad for having done that.
Right.
So yeah, cool. So that's really I accidentally started playing again because I wanted to test my Mac Mini. But now I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. I actually remembering that I like this game.
In its new iteration.
Right? In its newest flavor. Yeah.
Accurate. That's cool. Spending some time with that, with No Man's Sky, and the new computer otherwise is working well for you. I mean, we'll see how it does podcasting.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out. If this episode sounds like shit, you'll be like, well, new computer.
Speaking of video games, I'll check in real quickly here. Like this last couple months have been super busy for me. That's why one of the main reasons why we haven't done a lot of podcasting is I have to grade all these papers real fast, and it's been not in terms of quality of the papers, but it's been, I don't know, for some reason it's been real hard this semester.
No, I am also teaching classes.
That is true.
I will say yes. Like, I mean, probably more so than you because it's my first time teaching the class I'm teaching.
Right.
Where at least you could be like, well, I've done this before. But also like, shit, dude, this is work. I mean, it's work for me. I assume it's work for you.
It's work for me, yeah.
The reason that's a weird, artful thing to say, because I think there's some faculty for whom it's not work. But I think that's less a reflection on us and more on them, right? Like, I now know there's some people like, oh, you phone it in. Anyway, so what I mean to say is like the fact that you're busy means that you're actually still doing the work. Means you're actually like, you're doing the right thing.
Although with 2 weeks left in the semester, that passion is fading.
I know. Oh, I know.
One of the things that has been kind of keeping my attention, I've been able to go back to it, is this wonderful little role-playing game that I found somehow. It has an absolutely terrible name, but it is incredibly charming. It's a game called Beyond Galaxyland. And it's this weird turn-based pixelated role-playing game where you basically play a character named Doug. He meets a girl he likes and he wants to show her his guinea pig. This is going somewhere. And he goes to get his guinea pig named Boom Boom. And when he comes back out of the house, she's gone and with just a tennis shoe left behind. And so he goes to look for her. And when he returns, after being unable to find her, there's like this weird guy just sitting there who's like weird looking. And this guy starts floating and chasing you, and you run away from him as you do until you go through this weird portal, which takes you to the place called Galaxyland. And basically, it turns out, spoiler alert, I guess, for the first hour, Earth, as well as many other planets, has been extinguished by an event called the End, I believe. And what they've done with this, there's a species that has been, before planets get destroyed, try to kind of rescue as many inhabitants of these planets and give them, here's a new planet for you. And we're sorry your planet died. But here, be happy. Not everybody gets rescued, but a small percentage. And Doug is not happy with this. And you got to figure out what's going on and is the Earth even destroyed kind of stuff. But that's kind of the premise there. And it's a game that has so much charm to it that even though it's not the most intensive or complicated game, there's just something about it that keeps me going back to it. I don't know how long a game it is, but it's charming. in terms of gameplay, you have a team of 3 characters, and you acquire more characters as you go through the game. Not a huge handful that you can swap out even mid battle and stuff like that. I want to say it's like a Super Mario RPG / Final Fantasy VIII kind of turn-based combat style where, you select from a menu to attack someone. You have attack, you have magic, you have summons, stuff like that. But especially with physical attacks, it can be
a physical experience.
Well, you press a button to do damage, right? Like you have 3 turn points, and if you press, as you just want to attack them, you have to press a button 3 times to actually do your 3 attacks. And then with physical attacks against you, you can reduce damage by hitting a timed sort of response that'll mitigate the damage you receive. But it's just this really, on top of the fun kind of engaging retro but modernized sort of JRPG gameplay, it has a really unique aesthetic that calls on a lot of sort of nostalgia from a lot of different eras of gaming. Like, it reminded me, there's an aspect of it, even though it's not doing the same sort of style that, once I say these words, obviously conjure a very specific look, but it reminds me of things from like, what are those games called? It was Another World and Flashback. Even like a lot of like early like 80s and 90s Sierra games to maybe more modern retro aesthetic like Oxenfree. It's not aping those exact styles, but it's doing that sort of modern retro, clearly being evocative of games you've played before, but going in its own direction with it. This almost like storybook sci-fi kind of angle. It's just a strange little game that I'm absolutely enthralled by. It's made by a company called, it's not even a company, it's just a dude. But the company he has his name under is Enright Beats. I guess he's like, he just makes music for fun. And he's like, I'm making this like electronic music that sounds like it'd be good for a role-playing game. So he just made one. Like, all right. And it's just like, again, something that we come back to a lot in this podcast is how just sort of fertile the indie gaming scene is, and where stuff can easily slip through your fingers or just miss your attention. I think I'm getting towards the end at this point, but it also hits some really interesting sort of philosophical, thematic, existential kind of questions as to like what is reality, and it has to do with this like the race that is, or the species that is gathering these people have a very strange religion. Basically, they're sure that reality is a simulation and they want to get out to meet the people that are actually creating the simulation. I'm like, I'm just Doug.
Right. Huh.
Right? I'm just Doug. And it's fun. It's a cute little game. I recommend it wholeheartedly. It is definitely in my wheelhouse.
And in our wheelhouse. Houses?
Oh. It's in our outhouses.
Wait, what? Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We can't flush.
It's a turn-based flush.
So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page of this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media as well, specifically places that Andrew and I frequent, which is definitely not Twitter. What that means is that you can find...
Or I believe it's Xiter, which I've been told is pronounced Shitter.
Yeah. But you can find me on the mildly better Instagram at Bethel Comics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at ProfoundDark at Dice.camp.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can find by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. Or you may be listening to our show on YouTube already. In either case, if you are on YouTube with our show, like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusi, the other is called District 4. And they're both written and performed by Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music and more at incompetech.filmmusic.com. You can find his music and more at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 Attribution License.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review, whether a text review or using the proprietary metric will help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms.
So I would actually make a real quick diversion to a thing I've talked about before that I thought, look, okay. I want to say that the most recent drop of Cobra Kai.
Oh, yeah, it did. Final season?
Yeah, it's the final season, season 6. And they already did season 6 part 1. And they're like, oh, season 6 part 2, and it dropped. And I was like, yes, let's be done. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've liked the show. Enjoyed it. I'm like, here we are, like, wrap it up. And it's 5 episodes, season 6, part 2. And after the 4th episode, I'm like, okay, I need to finish the last one. I'm gonna finish it. And as it's going, I'm starting to realize, fuck, this is not over. Right? Like that moment where you realize, like, oh, this is not over. And I realized I'd forgotten they said, no, season 6 will be in 3 parts.
What?
So part 2 ends with like the biggest what the fuck cliffhanger thing ever. And I'm just like, oh, shit. Season 6 part 2 just ends with like, oh, crazy, like, just like batshit crazy shit. Right. Like it does all the like the wrap up of like, oh, there was some friction, people got back together, they figured some stuff out. Not everyone, but like.
But then at the last second, they're like,
no, at the last second, something bizarro happens, and they're like, you cannot end this show on that. And it's like, oh, no, there's part 3. So anyway, I wanted to gripe about that because while I've enjoyed this show, I've talked about it frequently.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we inspired like 2 weeks worth of podcasts where we watched the original 2 movies.
I will, for fuck's sake, I want the show to end.
Put it out of its misery, please.
Like, just like be done with it. And it was just like the idea that like I thought I was there, and it was like, haha, no, there's more.
And you're just like,
at least I think I know that part 3 is the final part.
What you don't know is that part 3 is actually going to be broken up into 4 parts of 6 episodes.
Part 3, part 1. Yeah.
It's just like.
So I want to wrap with that because I'm not going to talk about season 6 until it's done in February, I guess. But just the idea that like I thought I was there. I'm like, I found the finish line. Like I'm done. But no, I'm not.
Yeah. If we're kind of in gripe corner, can I have a little gripe about something I don't particularly care about?
Oh, of course. It's Gripesgiving.
It's Gripesgiving. It's as we all know, the foundational event in our country's history, where cultures met and complained. Again, I'm not particularly necessarily interested, but like, this Wicked movie came out, right? Based on a classic, well, at this point, a classic book, which was adapted to a very popular musical.
Right.
And a friend of mine went to go see it. And she's like, oh, it was really good, but man, my bladder is about to explode. I'm like, yeah, I heard it was like 3 hours. She's like, yeah, and it's only half the story. I'm like, what? Hold on, what? She's like, yeah, no, part 2 comes out next year. I'm like, wait, no, stop, hold on, stop.
What?
Stop.
What?
It's only Wicked part 1. She's like, yeah. I'm like, no, wait. It's
what?
The musical that has a runtime and a set amount of songs, and they're breaking it up into 2 movies.
Sorry. What?
And part 1 is 3 hours long.
What?
What?
What is this?
What? No, stop
is this
it. The corporate machine. Did you know that apparently corporate machines are bad? Because
is this like Mission Impossible movie 6 part 1?
What the fuck? This is stupid. No, this is Wicked. It's a Wizard of Oz retcon that has.
Is this like Dune part 1?
It's the Wizard of Oz, Andrew. Like, no, it's not Dune. Like, that's the thing. No, why are they treating it like Dune? This is like when Tim Burton did those when Tim Burton did those like Alice in Wonderland's movies, where the second one opened like had like a war in it. I'm like, calm the fuck down. Like, just make a movie with songs in it. That's fun.
So this is like when they said, hey, like, what's it? Peter Jackson's like, dude, I did the Lord of the Rings. Like, right. Yes. I'm gonna do the Hobbit. Yes. And it's gonna be 3 movies. And you're like, wait, what?
You're like, no, wait. Like, Lord of the Rings makes sense.
How'd you make 3 books into 3 movies and then 1 book into 3 movies?
Yeah, I think that is the direct predecessor to what we're seeing here, but it's a musical. Like, are they making new songs? They have to, right? Or are they making just existing songs longer?
Or is it just like way too much talking? Which is why you don't go to a musical, because it has too much talking.
Right.
You go because it's a musical.
Or was it directed by Michael Bay or Zack Snyder, where like
the
non-singing scenes are just slow motion. They're just slow motion.
It's like it's Wicked. It's fucking about Oz, and then there's suddenly just explosions happening in the background.
Right.
Awesome barbecue. Awesome pool.
So that's my, like, come on. What? That just blew my mind. So let us know your gripes in the comments to this episode, dear listeners, wherever you might find. Gripesgiving. Happy Gripesgiving. And until next year, but actually, and probably, hopefully, until next week, I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and gripes,
that was a podcast.
Heck yes. What should we talk about? We could do like, what should we be thankful for? Not democracy.
Watch, it's fucked. Try again. Nice try. Try again. I guess actually I haven't done a recording. Have I? No, I guess I did. We did one since the new computer machine. No, actually.
No, I don't think we have. So.
So this is actually just me sussing out the whelp.
Yep.
I have too many USB devices.
Too many USBs.
So everything's probably fucked up this week because I have new options.
I don't understand.
I mean, I'm saying, like, all my computer stuff is...
New machine, new problems? That's what you're saying?
Right.